Okay, today I have Liz Bine, sleep consultant, with me, and she is here to talk to me, Kelly Maher Carvell, owner of Successful Breastfeeding LLC. And we are going to be talking all about newborn sleep and newborn sleep expectations versus reality. And she's going to be sharing with us some of her best kept secrets for getting the most sleep possible with your newborn baby, and I'm super excited. We have been trying to get Liz in live with me in the Facebook group, and it was not going very well. So here we are on Zoom doing it live. We might have some people pop in and join us in this video. If you guys are here watching live instead of the replay, please do feel free to use the chat feature and drop in questions if you have any, or raise your hand if you have something you'd like to say, and we will try to address your questions at the end. In the meantime, Liz, welcome.
Hey, Kelly, how are you today? Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate your patience because technology is like the best in the world when it works, and it's just awful when there's a glitch somewhere. So
yeah, I don't know what happened, but we tried 3 times to go live in 3 different ways, and it was just not happening. So here we are.
You know, if there's a will, there's a way. And so we will find a way.
We found a way, and here we are.
I love it. Well, good. I am glad to be here with you guys today. And you gave me such a beautiful intro. I could hear you. I just couldn't be with you. So I so appreciate you kind of giving me that introduction before. But yeah, again, I'm a pediatric sleep consultant, and I work with families every single day to kind of help foster more sleep in their lives. I especially love working with you guys because, as I'm going to talk about in a second here, feeds and sleep go hand in hand. Like you can't have one without the other, right? But healthy versions of both of those support the other. So I love working with you guys. I love working with your families and your moms because they are passionate about sleep too. And so.
Do we really know anybody that's not passionate about getting enough sleep? I don't know.
You would be surprised. There are people out there that are like, oh, this is just life. I'm not on a personal level. I don't experience that feeling ever. I'm always like, more sleep the better, but
I don't know any of those people. My people are the pajamas all day, plan your whole life around when sleep happens kind of people.
Yeah.
I enjoy sleep thoroughly, and as a mom of 4, don't get nearly enough of it, even though after your help, my children do sleep through the night.
Well, I am glad to hear that. Yeah, I used to be the mom who would like wake up in the morning and be like, when's nap time? Like that was my first thought. When can I sleep next? So that's definitely kind of led me to where we are today. But like you mentioned earlier, Kelly, I have so much information for you guys regarding newborn sleep. I'm going to move kind of quickly through some main points. It gets a little sciencey for a second, but I promise you it's really good education regarding sleep, and worthwhile to talk about. So if Kelly, if you're okay, I'll kind of just launch into things.
Launch away.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So here is like the jumping off point. The first thing that happens, whether you had a home birth or you went to a hospital or you did it in a birthing center, you're going to have your newborn baby at home at some point. And you're going to say, what the heck do I do now? And I'm going to start you off with this brilliant piece of advice. And that is to take it easy. I know that sounds easier said than done. But it is the best piece of advice I can give you because there's no need to put any pressure on yourself during those first couple weeks of having newborn at home. It kind of pains me a little bit to say this, but I'll say it, which is feeds come first. I would love to say sleep comes first as a sleep coach. I would love to say sleep comes first. It doesn't. You have to get feeds established first in order for everything else to fall into line here. So your first goal when you get home is to take a deep breath and start working on getting those feeds established. That is where our jumping off point is. So
You say that, not to interrupt you, but I do love that you say that, and I love that this is your philosophy, and it's one of the things that we love most about you, because that is true for so many things. When it comes to breastfeeding, especially, we have to get first before we can focus on anything else. And I'm talking about like pumping, preparing to go back to work, wanting to incorporate bottle feeding, any of those other things. Like we got to focus on feeding first to get all these other factors intertwined.
absolutely. Yeah. And all for all those reasons, right? So it's all hand in hand, right? If feeds aren't going great, you're not going to find that success in other areas. So this is like, and it is like a natural kind of primal thing too, right? Like as a mother or nursing mother, like that is our first parental responsibility, is feed your kid. Like whether it's nursing when they're newborns or when your kid's a toddler and needs food, like if they're cranky, you're going to know it and you need to give them food. Like it applies down the line too. But yeah, so feeds first always. I love promoting skin to skin contact right off the bat for feeds specifically, but also because, and you guys probably talk about this a lot, but even 30 to 40 seconds of skin to skin contact releases serotonin, which is like your happy, feel good, everybody loves this hormone, it's fantastic. And that makes babies really calm, and calmness equals sleep. So lots of really good stuff happening there. Outside of the getting your feeds settled and sorted, I would love to say, start watching your kid. Learn your child. You may feel like you know them. They've been with you for 9 months. Maybe you're adoptive parents, and you've gotten to know that your new little one through some letters or pictures and things like that. But you really need to just sit down and watch your kiddo. Observe them. Look for their cues, whether they're hunger cues, sleep cues, whatever they are. Start learning. You're not expected to know your little one right off the bat, but you can learn. That's what this whole process is all about, just learning. So that's where I'd love for everybody to start for the first couple of weeks. During that time, you have your very first small sleep goal. It's a very easy one, and it goes like this. We want to start setting in place a firm body clock and or what we call a circadian rhythm. So that's like your 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. It doesn't get firmly set in place until about 2 to 4 months, but it can start from very first days of newborn stage. The way we do this is twofold. One is lots of feeds, guys. It comes back to those feeds. Feed throughout the day. Feed. That will let them know that during the day we have more awake time. This is where we get our calories in. And then during the night we have fewer calories because there'll be fewer feeds. That's okay. That comes down the line. So feed a lot during the daytime hours. That helps with body clock. Secondly is do your very first feed of the morning in a brightly lit space. So if your little one has made it all night through, you've given a couple feeds throughout the night, and it's in between about 7 and 9 a.m. is a good ballpark for when newborns tend to wake up for the day. Make sure that first feed is out in your living space, open those curtains and get that sunlight exposure, right? Just sitting next to a window, you can see my window back here, is a great way to get sunlight in, and that will help firm up your the body clock again. So that's your very first small goal. It's pretty easy one. So if you're doing that during the first 2 weeks, you can say, hey, I'm already on the right track. I'm doing fantastic here. Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yeah, that does. And I love that you specified, because you said, well-lit space, and then you specified sunlight. That sunlight is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will come into the sciencey portion I'll talk about in a little bit here, but the sunlight plays a huge role in all things. So we'll touch on that a little bit. But at the same time, so you're doing your first feed in a well-lit room, sunlight's coming in through that window. And then I want to encourage you guys to do full feeds. Now, they won't be full feeds, I'm imagining, for every feed, especially when we're talking about our drowsy little newborns. But essentially, that's kind of what we want you guys to work toward. The reason I like to encourage getting full feeds in, and Kelly, I'm sure you can talk a lot about this, as a sleep coach perspective, 2 things. One is if you're getting a full feed in, we know baby's tummy is full and they're getting all the different parts of the breast milk that are important to their growth and development. But really it comes in handy when we're thinking in the back of our head, I don't know if baby's tired or hungry, and I'm a little confused on what to do right now. If you can think, I know they had a great full feed not long ago, then maybe the answer is they're tired, right? So again, feeds come first, sleep comes second there. So very hand in hand, I encourage those full feeds always. Anything to add on that, Kelly?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's some things you can look for too that help you feel confident that your baby is full from a feeding. And it's important to know what those cues are. And what can be difficult is trusting when, let's say we had a nice full feeding, they're showing you those satiety signals, their body's relaxed, their hands are relaxed and open, and we've got that like milk drunk appearance. But then let's say 5-10 minutes later, they're crying. And our instinct is their baby would cry after a feeding. And if you had a milk drunk baby 10, 15, 20 minutes ago, your baby crying is almost likely not hunger related. It's, I am gassy, I need to burp, I need to sleep. And they might give you sucking cues, they might root, but rooting's not a hunger cue. They might be seeking the breast because they are so tired. And trusting that we have a nice full baby is the first step, because now we need to support our baby in other ways besides breastfeeding. Otherwise, the only skill we're going to have is nursing our baby for comfort and sleep and all of those things, which is a cycle that a lot of us fall into. The only other thing I want to add too is if you're not confident of whether or not your baby is full at the breast, come talk to us. Because, if your baby is always having snack feeds and not getting full, that is a big time red flag with breastfeeding as well. So we should be seeing nice, full, happy, satiated babies. That is normal. Yes.
I love that, and I love you guys so much. I know, and I know you touched on this originally, but I'm going to harp on this point again, which is, I think that sleep coaches and lactation consultants, I think that we sometimes feel like we're at odds, right? Because sleep coaches want to do sleep, and when you guys want to do nursing, and it's like we can get a little bit at odds. I love everything you said about that, because I want there to be full feeds. If we're running into a family that is having trouble with a baby always getting drowsy at the breast, can't make it through a feed because they're so tired, then my job is to say, okay, we need to work on full feeds first, right? That needs to be situated first before we can tackle sleep. We can't tackle sleep until that issue is resolved. And so that's why I'm so thankful to have you guys.
We have worked together too in the past. If you guys, want to work with Liz and you have a newborn and you want to start working with her right away to start supporting healthy sleep from the start, trust that if Liz feels like, you need some support, she and I are going to be in communication on the back end, supporting you through healthy full feeds or working in tandem with you, because we're on the same page about that. Definitely. Like having it always number one.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about like what to expect regarding what actual newborn sleep looks like, right? Like this is like the technicality parts of things. An average sleep cycle for a newborn is about 45 to 50 minutes in length. It can vary minutes, that's the ballpark. It will develop as they get older. It'll extend to almost double that, and that's where adults sit at the 90-minute mark there. We're looking for about 14 to 18 hours of sleep during a 24-hour period, so that's going to be plenty of napping during the day. We'd love to have, of those 14 to 18 hours, about 10 to 12 hours of nighttime sleep. We're going to talk a lot about that in just a second, of what that looks like through the night. Here's what we do during the day. About 4 to 6 naps during the day is normal. And here's one of the big misconceptions with what I find with newborn sleep is that we're looking for naps to be uniform, meaning they take an hour and a half nap here and an hour and a half nap there and an hour and a half nap there. That is not what newborn sleep looks like. It is highly, highly variable. You can get a kiddo who does 3 to 4 hour length naps, and you can get a kiddo who does 30 length naps. You can get kiddos who do a mixture of both throughout the day. And all of that is normal and appropriate. My concern only lies when we talk about those really long naps, is that we want to make sure that we're getting the feeds in. right? Coming back, guys, coming back to you. We want to make sure that that the feeds are getting in. So if your newborn baby is sleeping for longer than 3 to 4 hours during the day, and that is causing you to have fewer feeds, or a baby is not gaining weight appropriately, then we need to start waking them up for a feed. If you're still able to get those numbers of feeds in, baby's weight gain's going great, and your baby takes a 3-hour nap, then okay, I sure as heck hope that you got some sleep in during that 3 hours too. But in general, that's kind of what daytime looks like for everybody. I also am going to talk a lot about awake time windows. And this is just your first introduction into that, which is awake time is basically just that. It's the time between sleeps that newborns can handle before needing another sleep again. So whether that's before or between waking in the morning and a nap, or nap to nap, or nap to bedtime. Lots of newer parents are really, really surprised to hear that awake windows are as short as 45 minutes for our newborns, maybe extending closer towards 60 minutes by the end of the day. So your wake time window will graduate throughout the day, get a little bit longer, starts again at 45 minutes between first waking and first nap, and then you can add on a couple extra minutes as your day goes through. Your awake windows are going to be really important. Again, we're going to talk about that in a second, but your awake window time includes feed time. So I'm sure Kelly can talk on this, that the length of feed for newborn babies is probably highly variable. If you might have a really efficient eater and you're done within a few minutes, and then you know that you have X amount of time, maybe you have 30 minutes before a baby needs another sleep again. I have just worked with, I'm working with a mom who has very lengthy feeds. And so it's very, very important that she is feeling like we're getting that quality feed in. We do a burp, we do a change, and then honest to God, we've got to go down to sleep again because we don't want to go too far past that awake time window. Does that make sense so far, Kelly?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely like a sweet spot for optimal feeding too. Like if we have a baby who is, especially in the newborn phase, now if your baby is constantly at the breast, and I'm using air quotes here, and we have babies that's nursing for like 45 minutes every single feed, that's a red flag to me. And it's something that I would want to work on. So older babies sometimes can do that, just especially when they're going through like growth spurts, developmental changes, neurological changes, where they're absorbing all this information, because all of that extra nursing can sometimes help them reset these big neurological leaps. But when we're talking about a newborn baby, frequent feeding is important. But if we're having like around the clock feedings at the breast, there's some sort of something being misconstrued here, and sometimes it's a misinterpretation of baby's cues, but it's definitely something to check into when we're talking about these long feeds. The kind of sweet spot for feeds in the newborn period is sometimes somewhere between the range of like 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the time of day, depending on what their needs are at the time, depending on how well they slept, depending on how well they fed at the last feeding. There are so many variables, but when you are having every single feeding be these super long feeds, that's something that as a lactation consultant I would want to know why, and want to make sure that baby is thriving in all other aspects before accepting that as normal.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100% on that, especially is because if we are having, that's always a red flag to me. If we're having feeds that are going so long that we are actually interfering with their next awake time window, that then I'm like, well, wait a minute, we've got some digging in to do there. So it's good, again, good to take the approach from each side, because I can look at that and say, maybe we do need to reach out to a lactation coach and say, you know, is this normal? Is everything else lining up before we continue to move forward?
Yeah, and 45-minute feeds aren't necessarily a bad thing, but, you know, usually in the newborn phase, like, and I'm talking like new baby, like 1, 2, 3 weeks old, like that is something that I'm like, we need to look into this, especially when, you know, you're in that like really critical period of establishing milk production and making sure their weight gain is going well. And then after that, things can start to relax a little bit more, and we don't hyper focus on all of these other things.
Man, I wish I had you guys when I had my babies.
I wish I had you when my babies were born.
I didn't even know that people like us existed back then. Oh, maybe that makes me old. Okay, so I'll press forward a little bit with just a little bit more detail around what sleep actually looks like for newborns. So newborn sleep is comprised of 2 sleep stages. You have your light stage of sleep, which is your REM sleep. That's 50% of sleep for newborns. And then the other stage is the other 50% is deep sleep. So there's only 2 stages for newborn sleep. That changes at the 4-month mark down the way. Many parents experience the dreaded 4-month sleep regression that everybody's kind of heard of. If you're having trouble with that now, we should talk later. But in essence, 50-50 for our newborns, 50% deep sleep, 50% REM sleep. Your deep sleep is like your slow wave regenerative sleep. It's where the immune system kicks into gear. This is where human growth hormone is secreted. Your REM sleep is, again, your lighter stage of sleep. It's where it's very active. So if you're looking at your baby and they look like they're sleeping, but their eyes are moving like crazy and their limbs are flailing left and right, and they're maybe looks like they're talking or they're goofing or they're moving all around, that's still sleep. It's just active sleep. So many parents get a little concerned, like I get a lot of parents who reach out and say it wasn't a quality nap. Well, let's talk about how old your baby is and what we should expect from that. Many parents misinterpret that as babies not sleeping when really in actuality they are. So this is where memory is consolidated, information is consolidated, and this is where your dreaming occurs for newborn babies as well. So very active stages of sleep, and then the other side is the deep sleep where they're just like, you can't wake them to save your life kind of deal. So that's what that looks like.
Yeah, no, I love that you're talking about this, because I remember a couple years ago, back when we were doing in-home consultations, which we do a telehealth practice at this point, but there was one incident in particular that really stood out to me. And I went and I did this home visit with this family, and the mom was just totally exhausted and overwhelmed and wiped out. And I came over to help her with a feeding issue. And then she laid her baby down for a nap afterwards, opening their eyes and getting a little restless. And she's like looked at me and like lamented, and she's like, see, like she's not sleeping. And I was like, let's just give her a second. And then she stopped and was back into this like very peaceful sleep again. And she was like, you mean to tell me I have been picking her up this whole time and waking her up? And I was like, well, the more you know. Like,
And listen, it's hard. I think probably every new mother probably did that, right? But you need somebody to say, take a breath, let them be for a second, watch and see what they do. If she went into full protest mode, of course you'd be like, yeah, pick your baby up, right?
Right.
But you're like, just wait a second. And yeah, you're right, that active sleep can be very confusing for parents, very confusing. Many parents in the middle of the night will be like, oh, they were up for such a long time. I'm like, hold on, maybe they were just in an active stage of sleep. And additionally, I'll tag this on too, which is when we transition from one sleep cycle to another, everybody tends to wake up at the lightest stage of their sleep, newborns included. Just a little wake up. Adults get really, really good at just putting themselves back to sleep again, so we don't even notice it anymore, right? It just like keeps cycling, we don't even notice. Newborn babies, and older babies too, might wake up a blip at the top of their sleep cycle, right? Their lightest stage of sleep before going into their next one. And we have what we call a noisy transition, which is they might call out to you and they might give a cry, they might give a kick. It looks like they have woken up. I really encourage parents to just wait a couple of minutes. If they've woken up, of course, go tend to your child. No problem there. But give them a second just to make sure that they aren't going to naturally transition into a next sleep cycle. So that's a good one to bring up there.
My daughter Riley, her signature light stage transition move was what I called the starfish, where she would like jot out her arms and legs like this and wiggle and like flop around all over and moan and move and then
and out again. They're so funny, aren't they? Like they're funny little creatures, these little ones.
They are. Yeah.
I love that. Make sure to write that one down because you'll forget the starfish move when you're older.
I don't know that I will ever forget that because it kept me up for a long time before I knew better.
That's going to lead me to one of my points at the end of this, so I'm going to make sure to come back to that. But let's talk more about actually that, which is like nighttime feeds and what that looks like. So when we're talking newborn babies, the likelihood that you're going to have your newborn baby in the same sleeping room as you is quite likely, right? Most parents naturally do this. Safe sleep recommendations recommend that you do this. So if we're talking newborn sleep, whether that's in the same room, in a crib, sidecar kind of deal, or you've got a safe sleep set up in your bed with you, safe sleep across the board, guys. But wherever it is, what does nighttime sleep look like for everyone? It looks very noisy again. I hate to tell you guys this. But again, if we're dealing with half deep sleep and half REM sleep, all the sleep that you guys are going to be getting, half of that is going to be noisy during the night. So just anticipate that. So if you're like, my kid sounds like a pig over here snorting all night long, that's very, very normal. One of, I think, the worst questions to ever ask a parent, and I think we've probably all been asked this, is, oh, have they started sleeping through the night yet? I will fight whoever asks you guys that. Tell them to come fight me. I'll fight them for you. Sleeping through the night means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The generalized term is they literally don't wake up from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. There's no night wakings. That doesn't happen for anybody. Like we already talked about, there's always little night wakings. For newborns, especially, you're going to have nighttime feeds, right? So whatever is their internal schedule, you don't have them on a schedule, but on their internal schedule, if they're at an every 2 or 3 hour feed for the first couple of weeks, that's probably what your nights are going to look like. So they're going to have lots of nighttime feeds. My hope for you is that in firming up your circadian rhythm, kind of like when we talked about at the beginning here, in firming that up, they will be able to better put themselves back to sleep after a nighttime feed. So anytime a baby has a feed and then goes back to sleep in a reasonable amount of time, even if you've had 3 feeds per night, consider that a successful night, man, because all we're looking for is to minimize nighttime feeds to be nighttime feeds, not nighttime parties. We don't want you guys up for hours in the middle of the night. So focus on that circadian rhythm from the very beginning here and know that nighttime feeds are normal and appropriate during the night. When can you guys start having longer stretches? Really not until about the 6-week mark is when there's an average when you can start getting a couple extra hours. I also hate it when people give the advice of like, your baby should be sleeping 12 hours by 12 weeks kind of deal. Sure, that's a possibility. Some doctors say that there's a capability of sleeping through the night around 13 weeks of age or 13 pounds. I think that's really developmentally more up to the child. I know many families who still have a night feed up till the 6-month mark. I think I've had a few families who keep one up until 9 months. I think it's really up to a couple different things. The kiddo, what they're showing you they're capable of, what mom is comfortable with, if pediatrician is on board for limiting nighttime feeds, and then taking all of that into consideration on whether you need to be worried about having nighttime feeds or not having nighttime feeds. Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yeah, totally.
Perfect. Again, at that 6-week mark where you can get to start having some slightly longer stretches, that is all due to slowdown of metabolism, right? So as baby's metabolism slows down, they're able to hang on to that nice last big meal right before dinner or right before bed, excuse me, and that can kind of help that stretch occur at that time. Okay, I'm going to talk real quick about science. This is the nerdy part in me, and I'm sorry. And then I'm going to give you guys some really good advice, I promise. But I do want to touch on this. So because you had a couple questions in your Facebook group as well, Kelly, I want to talk about.
We're on a 10-minute countdown here.
Okay, I'm going to expedite this, and we'll talk more. I'm going to jump really fast over to awake time windows. I'm going to give you guys the awake time chart that I give everybody. Again, it's really to help guide your child as much awake time as they can have before they hit overtired stage. Overtired stage is the enemy of sleep. It makes finding sleep incredibly hard. And so respecting those awake time windows is incredibly important. So you'll get the awake time window chart. Additionally, I want you to look into knowing your child's sleep cues. And a lot of them look like this: zoning out and pink eyebrows, turning your head away from any kind of stimuli that's going on in the room. Those are all things that say that your kiddo is getting ready to head towards sleep. If you are seeing, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, for those of you who follow us and have taken our prenatal class, a lot of these signs that Liz is talking about, we call them the SOSs, and they're the exact same thing, the signs of overstimulation, the signs that they are done.
Love that. Yeah, and that's exactly it, which is they're done. They have had enough going on. Now they need a break or a rest or a sleep. And that's exactly right, which is if you're seeing cranky kiddo, the eye rubbing or big yawns can all be cues that I call these my move quickly cues, meaning that kid needs sleep. There should be no bathroom stops to getting this child some sleep. So straight to sleep at that point. And then our too lates are if your kid is literally turning their bodies into the caregiver, trying to eliminate everything going around them. If their limbs start flailing or they're getting that really long, hard cry, it's too late. You guys have hit over tiredness. We need to pay closer attention earlier than that mark. So check your time frame on the clock and say, ooh, I went to 1 hour and 15 minutes on accident. We had a really explosive diaper and we got derailed. Okay, so then at the hour mark is when you need to start thinking about sleep the next go around. I'm going to talk a lot about bedtime routine. I'll make it short. Bedtime routine is the next small goal for everybody. It's a great way to communicate what's coming next, and that is a good nighttime sleep. Between about 0 and 4 weeks, your bedtime should be between about 8 and 10 p.m. That changes and comes earlier between 7 and 9 p.m. from 4 to 12 weeks. So it moves a little bit earlier. I like to do bedtime routine with a bath, lotion, massage. I know we're not giving newborn babies baths every night, but some lotion or a nice massage does the same thing. Pop on those jammies, give them a nice full feed, and then into the swaddle. I do recommend newborns with a swaddle for sleep. And then down to sleep for the night, everybody. And you can give as much assistance to get your newborn to sleep as possible. There's no such thing as giving too much assistance to a newborn. That's what we're here for as parents. Sleep environment, these are big ones. I'll move quickly, I promise. Sleep environment, wherever that happens to be, is cool, it is calm, it is dark, it is safe. Those are all the big ones. And then I do encourage white noise as well for a couple reasons. One is babies are noisy, so if you're sleeping in the same room or next to your baby, it's going to drown those noises out. And two, it will just drown out any external noise from outside the house as well. Here are my best sleep tips. And I'm not going to tell you guys to sleep when the baby sleeps because apparently everybody hates that one. But I'm going to tell it to you this one time. If you are the type of mom who's like, I can't sleep during the day when my baby sleeps because I have a toddler at home, or I need to have a clean kitchen before I can go to take a nap. Like, these are just things you have to check off your box. I get it. I want you to do one thing, which is go to bed when baby goes to bed at night. Here is why. Baby will have usually the longest chunk of sleep, consecutive hours of sleep in that first section of sleep. So from bedtime to their first waking usually is the longest. That coincides with adult sleep. Adult sleep, we usually have the longest section of deep sleep during our first third of our night. So if we can line up these two sections where parents are getting as much deep sleep as possible, overlapping with baby's longest stretch of sleep, that will be your ticket to success. You hear about people who always are like, I can get by on 4 hours of sleep. Maybe they can because they get 4 hours of deep, restorative, regenerative sleep. That's what's happening during that time. So that's my biggest sleep push for parents. Second, more little advice for you guys is this: be unflinching in your requests from people who offer to help you. They have offered for a reason. They want direction, and it is within your responsibility, capabilities to be unflinching in what you ask for them. If they say, hey, how can I help? Don't say, oh, I'm fine. You can say, I would love to have a really healthy salad for lunch on Tuesday. And that person will bring you a really healthy salad for lunch on Tuesday. Don't say dinner, because everybody's going to make you a pasta bake and you're going to be so sick of pasta you're not going to know what to do with yourself. Ask for, I need a smoothie. I need a great salad. I would give anything for some awesome oatmeal. Like whatever it is, ask for it. And then secondly is ask for everything on paper plates. This one sounds dumb. You don't want to have to do dishes if your kiddo's sleeping and you do want to take a nap. Put it on a paper plate. There is nothing wrong with paper plating it for the first little while of having your newborn home. Trust me, you will thank me for that one later. It's a lifesaver. Lastly, get some earplugs because those babies are noisy during the middle of the night. If your baby is awake and needs to be fed, you will hear them. Do not worry, you will hear them. But again, they're very, very noisy, so use those earplugs. Naps can be out in the living space for the first several weeks up to a couple months. So don't feel like every nap has to be in the sleep space in a dark room. I do recommend that for bedtime for sure. Try to get first nap in that nice conducive to sleep atmosphere, but everything else is very flexible. So you can do them out in your living room. You can do them on the go, in the carrier, whatever works for you. I am a huge fan of parents getting out and about and socializing. Well, in the current climate, maybe there's some restrictions, but in general, you need support from your community. So don't feel like you have to be home for every single nap with a newborn baby. This is where they learn the skill of going out and napping on the go as well. That is a lot of information, Kelly. Very quickly towards the end there.
So they have the ability now to pause and rewind and go back and take notes if they want. I also want to say I am not that mom who has to have their kitchen clean before they can sleep. To this day, I am not that mom.
I know they exist because people tell me they exist, but I am not that mother either.
I'm not that person. I'm pretty grown and I will go to sleep with a dirty kitchen. I don't care.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Oh, hi, there's my child. Work from home, mom. Hey. No, but that's really all I have for you guys today. I have so much more I'd love to communicate to you guys, and hopefully I can do that over the next little while in the Facebook group. But my last little moment here is, if you're having trouble with your newborn sleep, if you are going to be having a baby soon and sleep is a concern for you in any way, shape, or form, if you have a 6-month, 9-month, 1-year-old, 4-year-old at home and they're having sleep issues, I am happy to help you fix those issues. That's what I'm here for. It's my passion. I love doing it. I offer a free 15-minute phone call to talk through what's going on and seeing if my services might help your family.
Awesome. Liz, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today.